The wedding that changed everything. I never thought my sister's wedding would be the day everything changed. Looking back, I should have known something was wrong when my invitation arrived just 3 days before the ceremony. It read, "Kitchen staff entrance only," printed in elegant gold script, with a crude arrow pointing to the back of the venue. My sister Victoria had always been the golden child. While I chose to work with underprivileged children as a teacher, she climbed the corporate ladder with perfectly manicured nails and designer heels. Our parents never let me forget the difference between us. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" Mom would sigh, shaking her head at my simple clothes and practical shoes. "Look at her, engaged to James Anderson, CEO of Anderson Industries. And what do you have to show for yourself?" What they didn't know was that I had plenty to show, just not in ways they could understand. My tiny apartment might not be impressive, but the smiles of my students when they finally grasp a difficult concept? That was worth more than any luxury condo. So I went to the wedding. Victoria was my sister after all, even if she'd grown distant since getting engaged to James. I put on my best dress, elegant in its simplicity though far from designer, and drove my old Honda Civic to the Grand Plaza Hotel. At the main entrance, the security guard glanced at my invitation and barked, "Service entrance only." So I walked through the hotel's bustling kitchen, dodging staff preparing for what was clearly an extravagant reception. A hostess led me to a tiny table hidden behind a massive pillar. Practically invisible. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "but your sister's instructions were clear. Family members who might embarrass the couple should be kept out of sight." My hands trembled as I sat down. The table was set with plastic utensils, while fine china gleamed everywhere else. Next to my plastic fork lay a handwritten note in Victoria's flowing script. "Know your place, little sister. Don't ruin this for me." I should have left then. Should have walked out and never looked back. But something made me stay. Maybe the same stubborn streak that made me choose teaching over the career path my parents demanded. The ceremony was beautiful, of course. From my hidden corner, I watched Victoria glide down the aisle in a gown that probably cost more than my yearly salary. James Anderson waited at the altar, tall and distinguished in his custom tuxedo. Handsome, polished, perfect for a magazine cover. But his expression seemed strained. Then he saw me. And in that instant, James Anderson, CEO of Anderson Industries, did something no one expected. He dropped his wedding ring. The golden band rolled across the marble floor and stopped at my feet. As I bent to pick it up, memories from 15 years ago came rushing back. I was 19, working my way through college at a tiny coffee shop in Boston. He was 22, just a grad student then, Jamie. Not a CEO. Not a billionaire. Just Jamie, who always ordered a black coffee, no sugar. We spent 6 beautiful months together. He dreamed of changing the world through ethical business. I dreamed of teaching. We even talked about starting a foundation one day, combining our passions. And then he vanished. No goodbye. No explanation. Just gone. A year later, I saw his photo in a magazine. James Anderson, heir to Anderson Industries, engaged to a wealthy socialite. Now 15 years later, he was staring at me like he'd seen a ghost. "Jamie," I whispered, holding out his ring. The color drained from his face. Victoria frowned. "James, darling, do you know my pathetic little sister?" But James wasn't looking at her. His eyes had locked onto my left hand, where I still wore the small silver ring he'd given me all those years ago. The one engraved, "To my Emma, who taught me what really matters." "Emma," he breathed. In that one word I heard 15 years of regret. Victoria's voice sharpened. "James, what's going on?" Before he could answer, a distinguished older man rose from the front row. Richard Anderson Sr., James's father, the founder of Anderson Industries. His face was thunderous. "Son," he said, voice booming across the hushed room, "please tell me this isn't the same Emma." "The same Emma?" James straightened, and for a moment I saw the Jamie I once knew, the one who wanted to change the world. "Yes, father," he said clearly. "This is Emma. The woman you paid $5 million to disappear 15 years ago." The room erupted. Gasps. Whispers. Phones recording. Victoria's wedding unraveled into chaos. $5 million? I stood up slowly, my teacher's salary flashing in my mind. "You paid me to disappear?" Richard adjusted his tie coolly. "I paid your mother. She assured me you'd never contact James again." Said you agreed it was for the best. My mother. Suddenly, the pieces fell into place. Her insistence I transfer universities that year, the mysterious deposit in my college fund, her constant reminders that Jamie was out of my league. You knew, I whispered, turning to her. She shrank into her chair. You took money to separate us. It was for your own good, she snapped, her designer dress rustling. Look at you. A teacher. Living in a tiny apartment. James needed someone who could live in his world. Victoria was perfect. James laughed bitterly. Perfect? For the company image, maybe. Just like that socialite you tried to set me up with after Emma left. You've been orchestrating my relationships for 15 years. Did you tell Victoria about that too, father? Victoria's voice shook with rage. James, surely you're not comparing my worthless sister to me. Look at her dress. It's not even designer. James's voice softened. No. It's handmade. Emma always said the most valuable things are made with love, not money. He turned to me. You still make your own clothes? I nodded, throat tight. He remembered. This is ridiculous. Richard thundered. James, you have responsibilities. The merger with Victoria's father's company. Is that what this wedding is really about? James cut him off, voice cold. A business deal? Victoria paled. What do you mean, a business deal? The day the wedding fell apart. Deal? I'll be. You know exactly what I mean. James turned to Victoria, his voice sharp. Your father's company is failing. This marriage would save it. That's why he pushed so hard for you to date me, isn't it? Victoria's father shot up, red-faced. Now see here. But James wasn't finished. He reached into his tuxedo jacket and pulled out a small USB drive. I found some interesting documents last week, father. About what really happened 15 years ago. About the real reason you wanted Emma gone. Richard Anderson Sr.'s face went ashen. James, he began. James's voice carried through the silent room. Emma wasn't just my girlfriend back then. She was also volunteering at a youth center in South Boston. A center that was about to be demolished for one of our developments. A development that would have displaced hundreds of families. I remembered that fight. The protests. The meetings. I'd been helping the community organize. Jimmy back then had been supportive. He'd even talked about finding alternative sites. Emma was organizing the community, James continued. She was good at it. Too good. The media was starting to notice. If that development had failed, it would have cost the company millions. But, worse, it would have proven that Anderson Industries could be beaten. That's why she had to go. Isn't it, father? Richard collapsed into his chair. So you paid her mother to make her disappear, James said, his voice like ice. You erased our relationship, destroyed every trace. You even donated to her new university to guarantee her transfer. All perfectly arranged. I did what was necessary for the company, Richard muttered. The company? James laughed bitterly. The company that's now mine. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Yes, James said, turning to the stunned guests. As of last week, I'm the majority shareholder. Father signed over control as an early wedding gift. Ironic, isn't it? Victoria let out a strangled sound, but James ignored her. He crossed the room and stopped in front of me. Emma, he said softly. I spent 15 years thinking you abandoned me. 15 years trying to be the son my father wanted. Then last week I found these documents and finally understood. I was going to stop the wedding anyway. But then, he gave a dry laugh. Then I saw your name on the guest list. Seated in the kitchen, of course. Victoria always did have a flair for drama. He turned to my sister. The wedding's off. You might want to check your father's company finances before he arranges another merger. Victoria screamed and hurled her bouquet. It missed us and crashed into a pyramid of champagne glasses, sending crystal shattering across the floor. James raised his voice over the chaos. As my first act as CEO, Anderson Industries will establish a $100 million foundation for education in underserved communities. Then he looked at me. We need a director who understands both education and community organizing. Interested? My mother leapt to her feet. Emma, darling, I always knew you had potential. Save it, I cut her off. You've helped enough for one lifetime. I turned to James. This foundation job, does it come with a corner office? He grinned. Only if you'll have dinner with me first. I know a little coffee shop in Boston. You can't do this. Victoria shrieked. Daddy, do something. But her father was already rushing out, phone pressed to his ear, probably calling his accountant. Richard Anderson Sr. struggled shakily to his feet. Son, think about what you're doing. Oh, I have father. For 15 years. James slipped his hand into mine. The company's image needs more than profits. It needs purpose. Less corporate greed, more responsibility. Emma always said the measure of success isn't how much money you make, but how many lives you improve. Victoria's voice rose again, but I barely heard her. I was looking down at the small silver ring I'd never taken off, remembering a boy in a coffee shop who once dreamed of changing the world. You kept it, James whispered, touching the ring. You came back, I replied. The book. 6 months later, the Anderson Echen Educational Foundation had already funded 50 community programs. Victoria eventually married a minor European prince who, ironically, believed in socialist policies. My parents suddenly developed an interest in charitable giving, though their invitations to family events still had a habit of getting lost in the mail. Richard Anderson Sr. retired to a villa in Italy. To everyone's surprise, he sent me a heartfelt letter of apology. I framed it, right next to the newspaper article about our foundation's launch. As for James and me, we still visit that same Boston coffee shop. He still orders black coffee, no sugar. But now, when we talk about changing the world, we actually do it. The small silver ring on my finger finally has a companion. A simple gold band inscribed, "To my James who came back to what really matters." Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting it right.